Hey everybody, my name is Donna and this is Phoenix Fire. Today's guest, Tyla Savard, outspoken and fierce advocacy leader in Alberta, and who now serves as program manager for the Stronger Together Canada peer support group through Moms Stop the Harm, is no stranger to the difficulties parents and loved ones are faced with when someone is struggling with substance use harms. We're going to meet her and find out more about why she does what she does right after this. I spent a year and a half on the streets. Addiction took me there. Pain took me there. My name is Donna, person in recovery, domestic violence survivor, mother of two. I spent years running from myself, but no more. I've come to find peace, and I am not here to light a candle. I am here to set fire to the darkness and give voice to the voiceless. I hope you'll join me and my guests as we face the stigma around addiction and tear down the walls of oppression. This is not a safe space. This is a brave space. This is Phoenix Fire. So, before we bring in Tyla, I just want to mention that today's live production is premier sponsored by Stronger Together Canada peer-led support groups through Moms Stop the Harm. To learn more about our sponsors, head over to www.hardknockstalks.com. Okay, let's bring in Tyla. Hi, Tyla.
Good morning.
Oh, our sound.
I guess depending where you're coming from.
Okay, now we can hear you. How's it going?
It's going well. How about for you?
Oh, really good. Thank you. I'm really glad that you're here today.
Well, thanks for having me. I know it's an important place for us all to come together.
Absolutely. Is there anything you'd like to say before we get started?
I guess just thanks for everyone for tuning in today. This is awesome that we can, have this reach and, with technology that we can come together from, like, I think we're South Dakota or North Dakota, all over Canada. This is really good. So I'm really looking forward to having some chat time with you and to be able to share some information. And it's going to be good.
It is. It's a beautiful thing that we can reach so many people without even leaving our house.
Absolutely.
Okay, so let's start off with what brings us together today.
All right. Well, we ended up having the harshest learning curve ever with a child that gave us lived experience in regards to substance use. Our oldest ended up coming in, was in a bad relationship, I guess is really where it started, right out of high school. In high school back, we're looking at 12 years, 12, 13, actually 14 years now, I guess. Oh, man, I just dated myself as being a mom. But anyways, our child had, we knew that she was smoking pot. We weren't really excited about it by any stretch, had the conversations, had the talks and let it be known that, that's not what life is about. But at the same time, when you're looking at, it was also the lesser of the evils, right?
Mm-hmm.
She was, was smoking pot versus doing cocaine and things like that. And of course, this was way before fentanyl and the chaos that we know came on the scene. And so we just, you just take your days, you learn, and you go forward. And of course, when you're 17, 18, your parents only know so much. They know nothing in your mind until you're probably closer to like 25. Then it's like, oh, okay, maybe my mom did know something along the way. But anyways, you live and learn no matter what, unfortunately. She ended up being in a really bad relationship where the boyfriend at the time was very abusive and did anything and everything that he wanted to her, including rape her and just violate her in every which way and degrade her as a person. And got to the point where he would actually just, he'd come home from work with cocaine and taught her to just snort cocaine to deal with the pain. And that was how she was to deal with it. Well, of course, when you go from being so full of wisdom at that age and not necessarily listening to those that support you as to what they have to say. Of course, that's a really big piece of humble pie to have to swallow to reach out and get support. Yeah, but we managed through that. She had quite the experiences, and ended up being some jail time and that kind of stuff that came out of it for him. She took every kind of beating that he could give, and she just became stronger and just kept ticking. She's an amazing, amazing young woman. Yeah, she just blows my mind. She's just I don't know if I can swear or not on here, but
Yeah,
just the
absolutely.
whole emphasis, the words on there. She's just fucking awesome. Like she just is. My heart just melts just seeing as to everything that she's gone through. Not only from that boyfriend and everything he put her through, to the ringer, to subsequent boyfriends, then ended up being just using her, knowing that she had had the challenges and the experience that she had had from the first one, then introducing her to fentanyl without her knowing. And of course, then that just started the whole next phase of the chaos that we were dealing with. Yeah, we pretty much lived a movie screen. Things that you see on TV, I totally look at TV different now. I'm like, that happened to somebody. That's
Hmm.
reality. Like this shit isn't just made up. Like this is real. And life is real on so many levels, but we just sort of take it as, okay, well, if I'm watching it on TV, then that this just made up. This doesn't really happen, right? This is only in the dreamland of life, where no, like we had the dealers coming busting in our house at 3 a.m. And I have to say, I wear a lot more for pajamas now since having this one experience where I was literally hauling these guys
I'm
out
sorry
at
for
three in
laughing,
the
but that was
morning.
unexpected.
Yeah. It was unexpected for me too.
Yeah,
But
for sure.
like literally grabbing them by the scuff of the neck and the back of the belt on the back of their jeans, and like literally kicking their ass out of my house. And then they realizing that, oh, it wasn't because they were here for the boyfriend, and it wasn't his house. It was it was our house. So then they backed off. But then realizing, like, one guy was like already, like, he broke in the door, went down the stairs. This big ended up being the kingpin, which of course I didn't know at the time. But he had, he's the one that I literally had grabbed by the scuff of the neck and the back of the jeans and
Good
booted
for
out the
you.
door, to realizing, he just had his guard dog kind of guy standing there just waiting for that word. And I was just like, holy, like, to collect my mind afterwards, collect my thoughts. It was just like, holy hell, like, what just happened and what did I just do?
Hmm.
Like, yeah, whole new perspective on life, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, so like, and that was all part of the experience. It's nobody can make this stuff up. It
Hmm.
happens, and it's a whole different collection of thought processes or lack of thought processes to people and being on different missions and different frames of mind. There's not everybody has the same morals and the same values, and so that those have become those collisions, and it's just like a holy, like, yeah, it's a lot to be able to process.
Hmm.
Yeah, so our daughter was she was using, she was we ended up having to do the whole, what we knew at the time to be what was the best decision, which was the tough love. At the same time, I couldn't do that right away. It had to be when I had that strength to be able to, okay, you either get in my truck right now and I take you to a safe place away from this community, away from everything that's going on here, and we get supports for you and we get treatment happening, or you have to figure something out, because this isn't working. This isn't
Hmm.
working being here, and you have siblings, and I have to take care of them as well.
Hmm.
And at the same time, nobody knew a lot of what was going on. Like, you kept this kind of shit to yourself. You don't share your dirty laundry. You don't, if even 3 in the morning, I'm up booting drug dealers out of my house, and then it's back to bed for a couple hours and up at 6 to be at work for 8. And in the meantime, I've dropped my other daughter off at daycare, and like all these things. Like, you just have that.
Like
Nobody knew
everything's just
anything.
totally fine.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's even family didn't know, and even anyone that did know anything, they only knew just enough that they had to know, because I couldn't support all of them, and
Hmm.
I couldn't at that time, being in the thick of it. I couldn't support having to take care of all their stress and all their questions, and their demand on me was way
Hmm.
too much. And
Hmm.
so, just as self-preservation, and the fact of not everybody needed to know what was going on. In the meantime, our daughter ended up living on the streets for a while. Within a few days, she ditched the boyfriend that was so important to her, the days prior. We had no supports in our community, next to nothing. There was addictions counseling and that, but that did nothing. It did nothing
Hmm.
to even try to um, reach someone where they were at to understand the whole impact of fentanyl and everything that it was bringing into the equation. I never thought I would ever find a topic that Google didn't know. Like people like, how do you spell fentanyl again? And looking for that sticky note on their computer to be able to pull up something because there was one piece of information. But before that, like there was nothing. I remember she was laying on my couch. I didn't know she was coming down. I didn't know she was high. I was totally like living on the edge if I had a glass of wine kind of approach to life, because it was never my thing to really be interested or think that was something to do. More times than not, I'd be like the DD for my friends if, in high school and that kind of stuff. And I was quite fine with that. Like it didn't take away from the fun I was having. I could be still just as wild and crazy and do, just do crazy things to have that fun.
Well,
regardless,
in our
I didn't have to
conversation
have
that we
that
had,
extra.
I can completely believe you when you had said like you don't need to have that, substance in your system for that, because you're very outspoken and you're a very fun-loving lady. So I'm sorry, continue.
Oh no, that's all right. It's yeah. So anyways, like life is just, I guess I had that self-awareness and that self learning about about what I wanted or I didn't want, or where my boundaries were beforehand. And I guess of course you don't know any life to be anything different until you learn something different. Well, I learned something different with having kids and the experience that we've had since. So ended up we were at it for a good probably 6, 7 years for sure, before there were any kind of supports that come to our community, as far as from the marijuana to then the fentanyl and coke and everything else in between. And of course then you'd start to learn a lot more about human character as well. Like people at one point, we had to basically have our daughter in hiding and not in our community, and the people just preyed on her in a different way. She would, because she couldn't even go to the grocery store to get herself groceries. She had to keep her curtains closed. She couldn't have her vehicle parked to where she was staying, just because he kept, this former boyfriend just kept finding her. But in the meantime, then she connected with some other people that were supposed to be friends of who she was staying with, where it was supposed to be safe. And so then they just preyed on it. They're like, you're cute, you're young, absolutely, let's use it to our benefit. And then then the ball, it just started becoming a snowball situation. So about 6 years ago, it'll be 6 years in August actually, that we finally got some opioid, the what do we call it? Opioid agonist theory. Sorry, all the acronyms that come to mind, right? And so with the Suboxone and the methadone and that. So we finally got that in our community. And so she went and she did her intake before they were even open officially as a clinic. After her intake, I didn't see her for the 5 days from when that day of doing intake to her appointment day. And of course, I'm just like losing my mind. That was a point in time where you took solace if you happened to just crash because you were so exhausted and that your phone didn't ring and nobody ran, the cops didn't call or show up at the door to let you know they found your daughter dead or whatever it was, because those are your fears at that time. And yeah, and it's absolutely horrifying, because then you also realize like, oh my God, I took solace in that, like that's wrong. And anyways, yeah, so it was just quite the roller coaster of a ride. Somehow she showed up, somehow she got home and was on our doorstep at the time. I was heading out the door to go find her to take her to her intake appointment with the doctor. And I literally carried my grown-ass adult child into the clinic, and she laid across my lap, and I had my arm on her chest, or my hand on her chest, just like she was a newborn, making sure that she was still breathing and telling myself that, no, there's a doctor here, if something happens, I can get help sooner than later, and just taking that solace. And then she started her journey. So not long after she got a couple months in, then she ended up being just conversations were happening. She was getting momentum and happening with going to the doctor every week and a pharmacy every day, and you could tell that my kid was coming back. It wasn't the behaviors and the pain and agony that she was feeling. It was totally she was becoming her again, which was so awesome. And at the same time, I realized then, okay, I could put my guard down a little bit, but then I also was needing something to be able to make sense of everything I'd been through.
For sure.
You make sense of everything we'd been through as a family. And again, supports were not so much there. Community supports are still one hell of a challenge to find, not only for the person that's in the thick of it and struggling, but as well as for that family support. It's sort of like a forgotten component to some degree, or an
Absolutely.
afterthought,
Yep.
unfortunately. But amongst it all, I had found Mom Stop the Harm. They were, I think, not even quite a whole year in as far as being, being an organization and coming together as moms. And, granted, as much as the name is moms is really just the fact of it was 3 moms that had each lost their sons to overdoses circumstances, and so really that created the name. But it's really for all families. Anyone who has lost a loved one to substance use harms, or has someone who is struggling or working on their recovery, everyone is more than welcome.
I'm
Definitely
glad
don't
that
let the
you
name
I'm glad that you clarified that, because I think a lot of people would make the assumption that it is just for moms, right? So thank you for clarifying that.
yeah.
That was one thing I was going to ask you to touch on. One of the other things, like you talked about lack of family supports. Did you ever access like Al-Anon or anything of that nature, or?
I didn't. I actually had the intentions of doing, Al-Anon, Nar-Anon, that kind of stuff, or figuring out where it was there, to even try to. Of course, back then it wasn't so much where like just to jump on a Zoom link was as frequent or as easily accessed as now, because that just wasn't something we did, right? We always just met in person,
Yep.
and so there was limited access that way as far as what was available in our community. But at the same time, in support for my daughter, just finding out that yes, I could help her out by just being that quiet, sitting beside her, holding her hand in an NA meeting, Narcotics Anonymous meeting. So I went to a lot of those as that support. They're being open, to the point that it wasn't very long, of course, because they do introductions and that kind of stuff. And even if it's just raising your hand to say, yeah, you're a support person to be here, and then of course they let you say your name, and I just say, no, I'm mom. I'm mom and I'm here to support, because my kid is important to me. And so there was like tons of people, even now, like this is years later. I have different guys that are definitely much older than me, and they're like, Mom, how are you? And come running up, we give the hugs and that kind of stuff. Or, we're Facebook friends and, hey, Mom, how's it going? I haven't talked to you for a while, and that kind of stuff. So it was, but it was just about being there, and of course, initially for my child, but at the same time, understanding her side of it from listening to others share. At one point, like one guy had shared the fact that, like he started using when he was 14. And then when he got to the point where he could work on his recovery and start getting to where he was, could fully engage on that good level in life, he was like 32. But at the same time, he wasn't a normal 32-year-old as far as how he thought about life and how his perspectives and such. That was more when basically he picked up where he left off at 14, and just to have that realization, I was like, that totally makes so much sense as to the response and how, like what we expect, because it's always, I expect this of you because you're old enough to know better, or you're old enough to have done this, or, like that was that expectation with it. But it's always associated to how many birthdays you've had. Well, how many birthdays you've had means nothing other than how many trips around the sun. Like that's it. As far as the developmental and being able to figure out what works best for you as a person, really goes back to when did things change, and that truly is where you're picking up from to be able to continue going forward. How can you have a big gap year? It's not like just a gap year after high school before you go to college kind of thing, right? Or you just do whatever. Like that time has to be accounted for somewhere, and you can't just forget about it. And so you have to just pick up where you left off and continue on. And so even that was a huge understanding as to understanding my daughter, and as to what to expect and how to approach her thought process with things, and how to support her in that better manner.
Okay, and sorry. So moving up into the Mom Stop the Harm, I understand that initially you moderated some of the online stuff, but now you are the program manager. So can you explain a little bit about that? Like we were talking about this before the show, that there is the Healing Heart and Holding Hope groups, excuse me. So for those who are unaware, can you please differentiate the two? And then we also, came to the realization that there are subgroups to that. So Could you please elaborate a little bit on all of that? Sorry, that's a lot to unpack
Sure,
in one question.
that's okay.
But I know
So
you
I'm
can
going to
handle
back it
it.
up just Oh, you bet. So I'm going to back it up just a little bit as to, I guess, why I could, how do I even qualify to be the Stronger Together Canada program manager?
Right.
It's not just because I have a kid that gave us lived experience, but I also took on the role within Mom Stop the Harm as far as being, I was of the first members on the Holding Hope side. So Healing Hearts is more, we sort of break into two categories, I guess, as our membership. So we have our Healing Hearts for those who have lost a loved one to substance use harms. And then we have Holding Hope, and that's for those who have a loved one who is struggling or is working on their recovery, and whatever that looks like for them. So we reference the heart and hope side of things quite a bit, just because it does have a different dynamic. And then unfortunately, we do have quite a few families that are on both sides of things, but it just is depending where they are in their journey as to which way they need to reach out to more. So with being on the hope side of it, I was of the first members of Mom Stop the Harm on the hope side, and so I just dived in to be able to, hey, we have after these connections, and just in my overall connections within Mom Stop the Harm as to what we were doing and how we could connect. And okay, but don't forget, I get that it's dominantly heart side of things. Don't forget the hope side of things too, right? Because I know that ultimately everything, all the advocacy that we do, it is for those that are struggling. It is for those that are still with us to prevent them from, going from the hope to the heart side of things. Um, so anyways, yeah, so I ended up taking on that role and just doing a lot of the connecting and, building up that side of things, helping to, as members were coming in on the Hope side, and we have like a Facebook group and all that kind of stuff, and just making that connections and making sure that people, as they were joining our membership, that they were connected in to be able to have that community of support. Yeah, and then from there, then on my local side, so in my community, we created our drug awareness coalition, to where we were coming together to do, if nothing else, a minimum overdose awareness day event every year. So this year is actually our seventh annual overdose awareness day in our community, which is all about community coming together in all aspects, and to be able to turn around and embrace community and share that education, awareness, and understanding, and just connecting as community, to then turn around, take that back out into our community to make it, make us stronger as an overall. Of course, there's been various local projects that we've also been a part of, or that I've also been a part of and initiated. But at the same time, we also have our community opioid response task force that our mayor started just about the same time that we started our drug awareness coalition. So it was a lot more bringing together like the strategic partners in community, such as like the chamber and the business community, and different organizations and frontline workers and such, to come together, and more the strategy component, where then the coalition was more the boots on the ground. And so with the two then working together, then we had both aspects covered, as far as, just let's not really think about this, let's get the action happening and get things and make moving along. There's other various boards and that I sit on, but those are two probably more as far as like this topic area that are the dominant in our area, that I participate with quite regularly. And of course, we have subcommittees and such, in regards to education and awareness. And we also did a video series. So if you want to check out our video series for Grand Prairie, just to understand the whole perspective of it, everyoneisimpacted.com. And we also did some follow-up videos on there as well. And I know there were some different ones that just Mom Stop the Harm members were doing in different communities. I know we did some that we have posted on our Mom Stop the Harm website for a group that did, I think they were mainly out of Edmonton area, Edmonton, Calgary, but they had all lost a loved one, namely children. But again, it's just that whole perspective to, again, raise the education and awareness, and to be able to make sense of it. Because when you're in the thick of it, you're not opening up to anyone. You're not sharing anything that you don't have to. And to lower your guard, to go, yeah, okay, I get that. That's huge. That is really big. And same time, you're also trying not to fall apart, to be able to, still keep your composure and be able to, I don't know, just keep your mind about you, because you don't feel like you have it with you at all times.
Mm-hmm.
And then I went from there. And then since there, I've, we've done so much work with Mom Stop the Harm. I'm also now part of the Alberta Health Services Addictions and Mental Health Provincial Advisory Council. I'm actually the new chair for that one as well. So that's been some
Wow.
really good connection,
Mm-hmm.
and really any way that I could be connected in to be a part of that conversation and represent the lived experience portion of the lived experience perspective.
Mm-hmm.
I've made sure I'm in there like white on rice. It's like, no, we need to be a part of this. I know there was different conversations at different times where it was more like going around the table, and so what are your credentials? And I was like, and everyone has like these PhDs and whatever else, and I was like, doctorates and that kind of stuff, and it's like, oh, that's nice, you read a textbook, is what's going through my head. And then I found that when it came to the fact of, I'm lived experience, and I know firsthand what this is about with
Mm-hmm.
having a child that's gone through this. My credentials of MOM were
Mm-hmm.
really nothing, where I was like, I was seen as the lesser, and I was like, this is bullshit. You're not going to treat me different. Like, I'm sorry, buddy. You read a goddamn textbook and spent thousands of dollars saying that, oh, yeah, congratulations. I have a piece of paper that said you read a textbook. High fives, good for you. But you know what? My stretch marks are going to outdo you any day. You have no idea as to what it is in real life. You don't even know what real life is about until you have a child that's gone through this, or a
Mm-hmm.
loved one of any capacity. And yeah, so anyway, so of course, then me being me, I politically just put it out there, and I say that point blank. And yeah, so I'm like, yeah, here's my soapbox, and so deal with it. So how
Mm-hmm.
can we work together? Because this is how we need to make our community stronger, by that collaboration, and let's make her happen. Like it or not, buddy, be uncomfortable. I don't care. This is how it goes. So
We've got a comment that came in from Ben Gorner, and he says, as a counselor, I can say that 12-step programs are awesome for some people, but not for all. So resources are lacking along the spectrum from prevention, harm reduction, out and inpatient treatment, and full community support that is needed.
yeah. Well, yeah, there's definitely a lot more to the traditional sense of how we come together that we need, because it's not the same. It's not the same fire that we're dealing with. It's not that
Mm-hmm.
same, bee's nest that we're handling. It's a lot more components to it, and we're learning every day as well, right? You get these drug alerts saying, now it's this big long name of some new drug, and they've only just been able to. They can't even always put a name to it, but just be cautious. It's a substance that comes in sort of this form, and sometimes this color or that color, and so it's really a big mystery every day that we're trying to be able to understand, to navigate, to be able to combat, and just to be able to keep people safe and alive.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it's a hell of a learning curve every day.
Yes.
And that's looking at it from the advocacy side. When we look at those that are in the thick of it, and not only those that are street engaged, that's only 25% of our population that, they've lost those luxuries in life. It's like that 75-80% that are for sure, that are using, whether in just a little more of a controlled manner potentially, but we just don't, we're not aware of them using. We're not aware of them having to use using substances as that coping mechanism. Um, when it comes to the fact of, because they have a job, they have a family, they have a
Mm-hmm.
house, they have a vehicle, and, they're the people that we, have lunch with on a weekly basis, or that we do coffee with regularly or whatever. Oh, yeah, they've been to my house. Yeah, no, they don't do that.
Mm-hmm.
Bullshit. Well, that is the dominant demographic of our communities that are struggling. And of
Mm-hmm.
course, then nobody's going to be talking about their dirty laundry, especially when you have your stuff together, because if someone finds out your secret, you can lose everything.
Absolutely.
But we, of course, always associate it to those that are street engaged, and they're just the ones that have had the harder luck and have lost those luxuries.
Yes, yeah, they're the ones that are kind of front and center. But yeah, I agree with you. There's many of us that are closet users. I mean, I was a closet user. I managed to hide it for a long time until I started nodding off at my desk at work, and I spilled coffee all over my keyboard, and my boss was like, what's going on with you? And I still denied, and I still managed to get by for a short while, but eventually it all came crumbling down. But and then I ended up on the streets myself. So, but I wanted to get back to, if you don't mind, you were talking about the peer support groups and connecting. How does that process work? Like, do somebody just email and say, this is my sort of situation, and then you or somebody within the organization help direct them to the appropriate group? Or can you explain that just a little bit for us?
So, so Mom Stop the Harm, Stronger Together Canada. We also have our Stronger Together BC team, just because of different funding streams that we were able to get at different times. But in essence, though, it is totally exactly the same programming. So Stronger Together is a program offered by Mom Stop the Harm, and thanks to funding from Health Canada, we were able to launch, so that we got some BC funding. So the year before, we were able to launch only in BC to be able to do this program. And then with the Health Canada funding through SUAP, the Substance Use Addictions Program funding, then we were able to launch all across Canada. And with that, then we were able to establish these peer support groups. So like I said, the Healing Hearts and Holding Hope. So we're trying to establish both peer support groups in every community that we can in Canada. Doesn't matter where you geographically are, if you're considered Canadian, if you're considered to be within Canada's borders, we want to be able to connect with your community and share the information and the education and awareness, and connect you into our community, as well as then establish these peer support groups in your community. To be able to access the peer support groups, we have a whole list of them every day. We have new ones coming, being established. So we have two websites. So we have healingheartscanada.org, and we have holdinghopecanada.org. And that's where you can find some more information as far as Mom Stop the Harm, as far as what the peer support groups are about, as well as then where you can connect to a group if you have one in your area. We also have a virtual group as well. So then that way nobody is ever excluded. There's always a way that you can connect in to have that peer support group.
Okay.
And then in addition to setting up our peer support groups, sorry, I'm just going to keep going because I'm on a roll here for you. Yeah. But of course, then, we can put that information out there, but it's still only going to reach so far, because if it's not just a general public, then it's only going to, that message is only going to have so much, steam behind it to really, get rolled out. So then what we created is we try to do on a monthly basis what we call a Heart Connect or a Hope Connect session. And then those are where we bring in speakers, bring in and just have them talk for about 15-20 minutes on a topic that is pertinent to, sometimes it can be both heart and hope side of things, or it'll be but a little bit more dominantly, say as to how to manage living grief. So more on the hope side, on that living grief. What does living grief mean? How do I process these feelings, and how do I make sense of this? And then understanding that is, you're grieving the living, and then as to how you can process that. And then as well, that's living grief is very different than the grief that we've lost, when we have lost a loved one. But at the same time, if you lose a loved one to, say, cancer or in a car accident, that's still very different than when it comes to substance use harms being in the equation. Very different. There's so many other variables and aspects to it. And so we've created a booklet which we call Gone Too Soon, with help of different partners like BCCSU. And that one I can only do the acronym because I always muddle up the full name of it. But there's different partners that we've brought. They come on and they created that document, and we were able to partner with them as Mom Stop the Harm. And then we're with the Stronger Together team. We've been able to add in the various system navigations and where do you go in your province, like those kind of go-tos. We've added that information into each provincial, and so we're creating that provincial copy of Gone Too Soon for each province in Canada. So with the incredible Hope Connect and Heart Connect sessions, they are open to everyone. So all communities, you don't have to be a part of membership. You don't have to be a part of a peer support group. It's the fact of just, you're interested, come and join us. You're, a potential partner or an existing partner, come and join us. We've had various speakers from Corey Ranger to Guy Felicella to Agnes Chen. Like there's been Shauna Jans. We've had quite a realm of them. Then we also make sure we record each of our sessions. And then because of course we know not everyone who is interested can necessarily take it in, especially when we're dealing with a 4-hour time span across Canada. So then we also record it, and then we upload it to our Mom Stop the Harm YouTube channel. So then that way anyone can go in, check them out. Maybe there's one that they missed, or maybe a topic that they're like, oh yeah, I'd really like to know more of that. Then they can always check out that recorded session and contact us as well from there.
Beautiful. I just want to address a comment that came in from Lizzie O'Sullivan. Says, that was my son exactly, with a house, car, full-time job, and nobody knew he was using. Thanks for the comment, Lizzie. That sounds like an amazing amount of resources, and I'm so happy to hear that. I wish it was available when my parents were struggling with my shit, for lack of a better word. It would have done them a lot of good. So I think right now is probably a good time to take a quick break and run the message from our sponsors. We've watched our children walk away. We've felt hopeless, powerless. We are Moms Stop the Harm. We are not hopeless. We are not powerless. Stronger Together Canada is a national network of peer-led support groups to help navigate these challenges. If you're coping with a child's substance use, reach out to www.holdinghopecanada.org. If you've lost a child to drug poisoning or overdose, www.healingheartscanada.org. We're here to help, and we are stronger together. So I would like to backtrack a little bit to talk about your daughter again a little bit. How is she doing today?
She's doing all right. It's she's, like I said, like it'll be 6 years in August that she started working on her recovery with the opioid replacement therapy. But it's, that takes care of the physical side of it, but it's definitely the mental and emotional. Like it's not like being on a diet where you can have like Mondays or your cheat day or anything like that. It's an everyday you have to stay committed, whether you feel like it or not. She struggles with depression, unfortunately. Some days she'll be totally fine. Life is going good. It's coming together. She's got the energy, and and life is just awesome. And then all of a sudden the next day she'll wake up and she'll be in just a severe depression. It's a dance back and forth. Recovery is definitely not just a straight line. It's definitely a big swervy, curvy path. There's sharp corners, there's, ledges where you're going to fall. It's just to keep them from falling. So, we talk every day, multiple times a day. We also got her, so our other children, their dogs got together, and so we had a litter of puppies last summer. And of the puppy,
was that an accident or was that a happy surprise?
It was pretty awesome actually afterwards. So I had from like August last year till probably about November or so, where I had anywhere from 9 to 11 dogs at my feet at all times. So it was very good COVID mental health boost for sure.
Yeah.
But anyways, one of our puppies she fell in love with, and so I actually had it. I had that puppy. I guess certified as an emotional support dog for her, and that's made a huge difference for her. It's just the little things, but at the same time, she knows she has to step it up and get working on the connecting again with the right counselor, because unfortunately her counselor that she had, she was making some good progress, and just that opening up and just really, I don't know, just be able to make that connection, because that doesn't just happen with just anyone. Ended up getting a job transfer and had moved, and so she's sourcing that. The difference too, like for them, is even like at the pharmacy, like we finally found a pharmacy where people are they're awesome. They, even if she's just in the store shopping, they're like, hey, how's it going? It's great to see you, and you're looking really good today, and just being, I don't know, just being common courtesy kind of stuff, where you get the whole stigma and the bullshit that comes at so many other places. And I know we've had this conversation within our team of Moms Stop the Harm too, that like pharmacists are very they're told this is how it goes, and this is the only way that it goes, and don't actually try to be a human being and be kind to somebody, because, well, that's not within your mandate, and your mandate is very strict as to you give the meds and you leave it at that. Like, let's not try to be, I don't know, just nice in a day. Like it's really not that hard or anything that major in any setting, whether it's a pharmacist or an emergency department, or just being someone out grocery shopping, just to be a kind person.
Yeah.
If you see someone's having a rough day, and it doesn't matter what you think their rough day is all about, you have no freaking clue on anything other than that snapshot of that second in their life. So don't pass judgment. Smile at them. give them something positive just to feel that they're not that much more. They're already beating themselves up so much. Like, piss off already. Like, just leave them alone, or just be kind. And it doesn't take much to be kind. It's just treat them like a fellow human being.
Yeah.
Yeah, so there's been lots of that kind of stuff, and that's definitely part of the journey for sure. I'm sorry, I sort of forgot what I was telling you, but there's so much to tell you.
That's completely understandable. It happens, especially once the bright lights but turn on. I'm having a bit of a struggle today myself. But so you were talking about the community engagement that you have, because in your particular community, it's quite small. And so you were talking about, and I'm drawing from memory here, but you were talking about how a lot of the advocacy you do is to broaden kind of care in general, but you also you strive very hard to make sure that those smaller communities aren't forgotten. So what does that take? How do you ensure that these smaller communities who are also engulfed in these issues aren't forgotten? Because everything tends to focus on the bigger centers, but we tend to forget about those outlying communities.
Absolutely. So I come from, so I'm in Grand Prairie, so I'm in northwestern Alberta. So I'm sort of like the capital city of northern Alberta, for northwestern Alberta. We're very geographically spread out. Even when you look at, like, within Alberta, the Alberta Health Services zone map, and when you look at and we're considered the north zone, it's actually the majority of our province. It's just so geographically large, and it doesn't have anywhere near the population as, say, like an Edmonton or Calgary. But at the same time, there's still so many communities that are impacted as to what happens in the north zone. And of course, though, then we don't necessarily have as strong of a voice because we don't have the population, and all the bureaucracy bullshit continues on as to whether our voice should be heard or not. So I'm always making sure that, like, hey, north zone, like, don't just treat us like the forgotten stepchild that like the little black sheep of the family or something. Like, we are here and we count too. There's additional things, like, it don't just say, oh yeah, well, you can connect in by internet and and access doctors outside of your community or access programs. That does shit if I can't get Wi-Fi. That does nothing if I'm in a rural community where, like, Wi-Fi is next to impossible. If I have to travel hours on end to actually see the initial doctor or find out any information, like, and that's very common. We're a community of about 64 to 68,000 people, and but we support a region of over 300,000 people. Like, because we have the Costco of the area, and not only from Alberta, but BC as well comes, and like, so we support that whole region in various avenues. And that includes, like, healthcare and support systems of any sort, any kind of social issue support systems. And, yeah, so it becomes like but at the same time, when we're looking at the stats as to what gives us our actual systems to put into place, it only goes based on what our population is. And so it's totally redundant, because then it's nowhere near enough. But at the same time, then we don't have those other support. We don't have those supports going into the other communities. So we end up being, again, that go-to. And it's no different than, like, we have to go to Edmonton for specialist appointments and the stuff like that. But at the same time, just have that balance on things. So I've been able to take part with joining the Alberta Health Services Addictions Mental Health Provincial Advisory Council. I've been able to take part with different research projects or different really any kind of opportunity. There's been lots of different things, whether it was, looking for, here's a project and we're applying for funding, and, here's how we're pulling together a project, to supporting like the Text for Hope, so the mental health support to help people so they're not having to, like, keep trying to, keep having to go back to access, like, psychiatric services and such, like on that emergency level, to be able to develop those support systems, to like our opioid replacement therapy. Like, there's just so many avenues, and so many ways of how, like, right now I'm working on one with a team that is building a model. So the province can then see where we have the bottleneck issues, where we don't have supports, or anywhere where we should, and they can start balancing out as to truly understanding the needs in the systems, to then be able to help make things to help bring things together a lot better as an overall perspective for our province, and not just so much of the zoned in focus on the bigger centers. So it's some pretty cool stuff that I get to be a part of. But at the
Hmm.
same time, it's just, making sure that I'm there, finding out where do I find out about these opportunities, getting in there, taking part, and yeah, just like it's the whole helium hand, like, yeah, I'm here. I want to be a part of that. I think that'd be really interesting, and not being scared to talk up, to speak up.
Hmm.
Really making that point of, yeah, I want to be involved. We need to have that lived experience, and now we see that, like I'll use Alberta Health Services because that's the example that I know the most of
Hmm.
because of being my home province. But then they're also reaching out and making sure that we are adding lived experience in a lot of our. That's part of the components and the requirements of a lot of the research projects that they're doing and a lot of the community engagement opportunities they put out there. They want that lived experience. They want that patient advocate perspective side of it. So yeah, like I said, like I'm white on rice. I'm in there and I'm like, okay, so like, and I don't care what your title is. If I have a question on your presentation, I'm asking my question. I'm
Hmm.
getting my hand up and I'm making sure that that let's have some engagement. Let's make this known. I don't have the paycheck to tell me as to what I can and cannot say. And at the same time, my paycheck is very gracious with being on the same lines. My thought process and Mom Stop the Harm. We do have that unified thought process. Where harm reduction is important. It's not just a black or white situation. Use, don't use. That's not reality for so many people. Everyone's unique experience of being engulfed in their substance use to then also their recovery is very uniquely. It can have a lot of similar attributes, but it's also very uniquely different. And everyone processes and goes through their journey at a different pace and stages. The other thing is everything needs to be evidence based.
Hmm.
Like, don't just blow smoke at my ass. Like, actually show me where does that come from. I
Hmm.
got the evidence. I can tell you exactly what happened in my household just last week, right? That's
Hmm.
my evidence. And I have no problem learning from you, but at the same time, show me the evidence, not just the algorithms and that kind of chaos that you think is your evidence. No, let's put some hardcore evidence to this, and actually let's start making some decisions to make changes according to the evidence to be able to support our people.
Hmm. Yep, very well put. Um, Now, I think we have come to the end of any questions or comments for the day. So I'm wondering if there's anything that you would like to leave us with.
Um, well, I guess, something that is always, I guess, well, I guess it's just me, but, like my husband says, like, man, it doesn't matter how dark of a doomsday life can feel. You're always still seeing that bit of positive in it and that, that silver lining to be able to take that and create that sunshine with it. So I guess, I just don't ever hesitate. I would tell people don't hesitate to reach out for those support. There is so much available to be able to once you just make that connection. I know, like for myself, like of course I can only speak to my personal experience and what I've seen in others, but once you have that safe environment where you can just go, I don't know, life is just not making sense and it's just like a whole garbly goop coming out,
Hmm.
we get it. We can totally understand. If you have that environment of understanding, there's no judgment, there's nothing but support, and we can help totally make that sense of it with you and to be able to be that support and help you out. um, don't be scared to reach out. It's important. We need to be having these conversations, not only in the addictions, not only in mental health, but they go hand in hand. There's so many variables to either component or either side of the topic, but at the same time, it's so tightly intertwined, like a really tight spider web, so many connections and so many crossover points that we need to be talking about it. No one is exempt from this. We are all impacted from it. And I think if anything, COVID has really taught us that before if mental health come into the equation, it was more that people were a lot of, well, if you have mental health, then that's an issue and you need to go to a special doctor and a special hospital. And everyone's like, no, like stay away from me kind of stuff. And it's like, are you kidding me? We all have mental health, just like we
Hmm.
have physical health. We're just a lot more in tune to the realization of it, um, how it all comes together and how we can then support each other. At the same time, when my community was not having these conversations, stigma was very dominant. Now
Hmm.
that my community is having these conversations, and I can see every year the growth and the interaction that were taking place by others joining and wanting to be a part of the conversations, wanting to be a part of the events, and then turning around and making it happen within their workplace or their organization, or even like with their church or their family unit. And unfortunately, something we can't really like put statistical numbers to really say, oh yes, this was our reach and this was our impact. But at the same time, just standing back and taking that bird's eye view of what's going on in my community, we've come a very long way in a short period of time, and we still have a long ways to go.
Mm-hmm. So just to quickly recap, because I think there are a number of people who are curious how to, change that stigma, as you said. What were the groups that you've started or belong to specifically within your community? Again, you mentioned the Fentanyl Awareness Coalition. Was that one?
Yeah, Peace Country Drug Awareness Coalition.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, so that way it's not just Grand Prairie, it's for our whole Peace region, which is a great area of that geographic that we support as a community. Mm-hmm. And then we have our Community Opioid Response Task Force,
right.
Which is, again, like everyone is more than welcome on all levels, and any kind of interest, yeah, definitely come and join us. And we just continue to build upon what our levels of what we're doing, our reach there as well.
What I'm kind of curious about too is in terms of, say, Saskatoon or surrounding areas, if somebody was inclined, could they contact you and ask for sort of like, how do we go about starting a group like that and maybe having this same impact that you did? Instead of trying to start it from scratch, are you a person, or is there somewhere that people can go to kind of get a framework on how to get that rolling?
Absolutely. I would totally love to be able to share all the different things. And, yeah, totally. Nobody needs to start right from scratch. We've already got wheels in place. So definitely, yeah, just come and just, clone it and take it and run with it and make it happen for your community. You bet. Okay, cool. I'm always, connect with me on social media. My email, all that kind of stuff can totally be shared. That's never a problem.
Okay, cool. That's awesome. Because I think that's a good, thing to do is to try to get more of these groups going in community to change that stigma and promote awareness in the community. So Tyla, I do believe that is the end of everything for today. I thank you so much for joining us and sharing your litany of knowledge. Like you're so amazing, and I'm not surprised one bit that your daughters are so strong. She's got a very strong role model in you.
Oh, thank you very much. And thanks for having me today. It's great to be able to connect. And thanks for everyone for tuning in as well. And I love that, we can, these are recorded and then we can always go back and share them again and again. It's really good.
Mm-hmm. Okay, Tyla, thank you very much. Take care.
All right, you too. Thank you.
There is power in numbers. If you'd like to contribute to ending the stigma around emotional pain, please subscribe to our YouTube channel, follow on Twitch, Facebook, and Instagram. Like and comment your thoughts on our posts. Let us come together with our lived and living experience as a resource that has the power to engage new thought processes, to promote new ideas, to broaden the spectrum of care, and to show the world that we can recover. There is a safer way, and we're here to show you how. Take care, everyone, and thanks for tuning in today.